This is Justin Ruger from Accessible Beekeeping, and this is the first look at our tilting horizontal hive from Horizontal Bees in North Carolina. As we see here, the artwork on the hive was beautifully done by Horizontal Bees, and we greatly appreciate the donation. This hive was designed to tilt at 45 degrees, and you can see here that we tilt it and we latch it in place. It is perfect for somebody working in a wheelchair to be able to pull up. As you can see, I pulled my chair up right there. We installed the bees into the center of the hive because that is where the entrance is, as you saw at the beginning of the video. Thomas DeGan, the president of the nonprofit, actually installed them back in May, and you can see here that we started to pull off the first inner cover. As you can see, I had some trouble with removing the inner cover, and once we got into the hive, we noticed that they had built honey in between the inner cover and the top of the frames. This is partially because it had been such a long time for us to get in to do the first inspection, and we believed that they had been running out of space, but they have not swarmed yet because they had space on the other side of the dividing board that they had somehow gotten between the dividing board and the open space, so they still felt like they had space and had started building spare comb over there. As you can see between these two arrows, this is where the main bulk of the bees are. On the left side is a divider board, and on the right side is the queen excluder. They have yet to get into the right side of the box other than a few bit of honey on top. The right side of the hive is where the flow frames would go or the deep frames would go, depending on whether I wanted to do a traditional extraction or use the flow frames for honey extraction. We started to work on extracting the first frame, and we were excited to find brood on one side and honey on the other. I don't know if you know this, but I lost about 75% of my vision, and even when I hold the frames up close to my face, it's very hard for me to see what's going on. So I did have Thomas DeGan, the president of the nonprofit, there to help me look through the frames, and I also used my app. What's that say?
No, I don't know. Capped honey, 10 or 80%.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not all capped that much, but it's just this section is what it's evaluating.
Be My Hive inspector that we are developing through Accessible Beekeeping to do the hive inspection. Here's another example of Be My Hive inspector in the field. It sees capped honey. It gives us a percentage of what it feels its accuracy is. And that is how we are trying to build the app to be part of our live inspections. Now that we have tested Be My Hive Inspector, it was time to start working on pulling out our second frame and checking it for larvae, eggs, pests, anything that we could find that would tell us the state of the hive. We were very careful to find the queen. We decided to test the app one more time. We saw brood and capped honey, exactly what we would expect to see on the outer part of the frames. And so far, so good. The hive is very strong and the colony is booming. Now we decided that it was time to start cleaning off the frames. We started from the outermost frame and scraped the honey off and put it into a bucket that we would later give back to the bees. But we needed to clean the top of the frames in order to get inside and do the inspection. Because we were unable to get into the hive since May, and it is now June 29th, there was a lot of honey put on top of the frames because they ran out of room. So one of the things that we needed to do was clean off the honey to finish our inspection, and we would definitely need to add more frames in. Some beekeepers inspect until they find the queen. Others just make sure that their hive is queen right. A queen right hive is one that has eggs, larvae, and brood, and it gives you proof that the queen is there and the queen is healthy and the queen is laying without actually having to find one queen bee out of thousands of workers. We finally pulled out the last frame that we were going to inspect on this hive during this inspection because I could not see them, but Thomas DeGan was able to see eggs and larvae. So what we did was we decided that we were going to stop once we made sure that it was a queen right hive and start to put the hive back together. We took two more frames out of the extraction side. and put them into the brood side. We appreciate John Hilco from Hilco LLC for donating these frames to us and furthering our cause. Part of being accessible is knowing when to ask for help, and by this point I had started to get a little tired and my arms were not working the way that I would have liked them to, so I had Thomas help me put the inner covers back on, and we tilted the hive back to its regular flat landscape. And after we undid the latches and tilted it, we were ready to move on to our next hive inspection and let the bees settle in this one because they had started to put their butts in the air and become very angry at our inspection. This is the Layens hive from Bearsville Bees in West Virginia. We started by lifting the lid and did not see nowhere near as many bees in it as we saw in the horizontal tilting hive. Thomas already had the idea that we had a laying worker from the swarm that he put into the Layens hive, but this was our verification to make sure that that was still the case. Once we got into the Layens hive, we verified that there was a laying worker. There was some capped honey and a lot of drone brood. We ended up finding infestations of small hive beetles and wax moths, and we were not able to find any of the signs of a queen right hive. So we packaged everything back up, and we are going to install a swarm that Thomas had caught on his property a few days earlier and see if we can get this hive back up and going. Thank you so much for listening to this video, and here's a treat. The wax moth infestation is seen here inside the red magnifying glass, and if you continue watching, here is a small hive beetle. These are infestation and pests that honeybees deal with.